Okay, hi everybody. I am wanting to share. Okay, I want to share this report. And this is the second time I am attempting to record this because I tried to when my kids were awake earlier and it did not go like I wanted it to. So, okay. For those of you who have read the Declaration of Independence and are aware of our founding documents, the United States of America and the independence from the British King. So, this right here is a report that was done by former U.S. Army Special Operations Forces team leader, member psychological operations specialist, and USACAPOC and the USSOCOM. Dadgummit, I'm going to have to go put my cat outside. I'll be right back. Let's pause this. Okay, we're recording again. Okay. So, 15, dang, this was 6 years ago. This has 2017 up here harvested. So maybe it was unclassified in 2017 and was put in 2014. Not sure. So, anyway, they put the attention for this for the U.S. Army Special Operation Forces, as you see there. I don't know if this is Special Forces, the Rangers, SEALs, Marshals, you see all that. U.S. Special Operations Command. Okay, so I was going to read the prelude of this. So this document is a culmination of 15 years of research and investigation into the all-encompassing realms of psychological warfare and the current operations known to be running that are associated with the works of this report that have been identified as vital intelligence. 2, the investigations into the material contained within this report were examined to assess the validity of the operations, identify who was responsible and or behind the decimation of the material or operations, and ultimately conclude and assess the level of impact, manipulation, and overall likelihood of its success on civilian and military personnel. So the subject of this is the orchestrated takedown of the United States of America. And if you notice this right here, this lowercase u, that's really important because in 1776, this is how it's written in the Constitution, okay, or in the Declaration of Independence. And you'll see down here, and if you've ever, looked into the Act of 1871, then you'll know that they've made minor changes, instead of for the United States of America, it changed it to of. Okay, so they should have put this as for the takedown the United States. Oh, sorry, for. Never mind, they shouldn't have. Okay. So the investigation into this material is to identify weakness in the objectives and exploit them in an attempt to sabotage, deploy counterintelligence measures, and or assess the possibility of taking control of the operations through direct or indirect means for our own purposes in the name of national security. So basically, I think he's talking about what was JFK's security memo, 57? Something like that. Okay. So a full-scale global analysis of the individual operations were assessed and investigated in great detail using human signals intelligence. I want to look more into that to ascertain and or confirm if any of the operations were to be running congruently or in concert, either with or without implied intent by individuals and or joint operatives, ultimately to undermine and identify the number of threat level operations, joint and individual players, and assess the overall long range objectives to these entities and their operations. So think about like law students right now. If any of you guys listened to the recording of Linwood talking to their whatever school that the law school, and at the very end, there's a young man on there, and I guess he's a student at this law school, but like I said, he's unknowingly using the wrong law against American people. So there's lots of people that are doing things unknowingly that they think that they're doing it for the greater good. They're just confused on the facts and the other side of it because they think that they have all of the information. Okay, so the investigation into this material was to verify the overall threat of multiple operations in theater and to assess enemies' overall strengths and weaknesses in order to strategically or tactically combat these and or any potentially perceived threats to the psychological and or physical, to include spiritual well-being of our military, civilians, and the United States of America herself. So here's some targets of interest. I think that they go through, or they do go through later on in the report. So you see here that there's a secret space program. You see Carrie Cassidy's interviews, government whistleblowers of indirect and direct interest. You see the U.S. Air Force on there with the weather modifications and HARP and free energy tech. You see the Committee of 300. You see the global depopulation, Monsanto chemtrails, Rockefeller vaccines. You see WHO, FDA, Vatican, the New World Order, Knights of Militia, World Bank, IRS, a Royal Order of the Garter. Okay, so it talks about the quantum grammar, about the postal judges, Russell J. Gold. He's got a documentary that I posted on Rebels Regenerate channel. Anna Von Witt writes, she talks a lot about the U.S. history and banking, and that's actually where I got my understanding on the birth certificate fraud, if you know about that, that they only came out in the early 1900s, and that's basically how they got all of the American nationals into their jurisdiction. Okay. So it's very in-depth, and this right here, the psychological warfare, this is a big thing. Okay, so apparently state of emergency declared on June 6th of 2015, and this right here again, common law grand jury, our real court, our real law is the law of the land, not the law of the sea. The law of the sea is for government, subcontracted government workers that are here working on and for the American people. So the laws of the maritime and the admiralty laws, those are supposed to be for those, not the American people. And obviously the lawyers and the judges and everything are all in there. So, okay, there's 3,133 county sheriffs in America. And I'm telling you, not all of them are aware or hip, or not all of them uphold their oath to protect the American people. I can tell you that my county sheriff, he violated his oath and took me to jail on failure to pay court costs on something that's not even lawful to begin with. So you see, we have a long ways to go, but we need our state militias, and we need our people we need all of the assemblies. We need 3,133 safety committees that are at the ground level, okay, grassroots level. Okay, so we're coming into the prelude here. And this was November 2nd of 1999. All federal services contracts legally dissolved. This report will be focusing specifically on the current psychological operations using grammar and language as a warfare tool to subversively manipulate and control the masses through international admiralty and maritime law of the sea. codes and statutes of the royal crown against America's constitutional common law, law of the land. This report will explain how the United States of America, 50 territories, and you notice that small u right there, this is the original. So whenever you see that right here, we're talking about America pre like District of Columbia and London and CCP China and Deep State, all of that stuff. This is America, real America, like Republic America. 50 territories and its people and all of their properties have been illegally claimed in acts of identity theft and fraud by the international criminal banking cartel of the Lords of London, aka Rothschilds, aka Federal Reserve. Butch, the Queen, and all of that stuff is no longer active, right? So they're all operating under a false guise of control, and it's pretty wild. It's very arrogant. Okay, so, and captured in their fraudulent maritime system of commerce without the expressed authorization or general knowledge and consent of the American people to do so. It is the object of this report to explain that the 50 United States of America, note the small u, was fraudulently surrendered in 1999 by the Federal Services Corporation in D.C., the United States of America, Inc. Note the Inc. and the capital U, and captured once again by the British monarchy. So they had a coup there going with each other. They were like, well, we have to really surrender this because it's expired. And then so they surrendered it to the monarch. Okay, so further, how this illegal surrender was foiled and stopped, yet the design of its fraudulent surrender illegally went forward, unbeknown to the American people of this country and unknown to the military. So a lot of the military, bless their hearts, they're doing all the dirty work for the bad guys. It's like a bad fucking movie we're watching here. And all of this since 1999 has been scripted. So that's what they say whenever we're in a movie. This is what they're talking about. This is the movie, them pretending to be something that they're not. Completely fake. Okay. So it is the object of this report to prove that it was in reality the private Federal Services Corporation, the United States of America, Inc., operating out of the District of Columbia that committed breach of trust, identity theft, and bank fraud by illegally claiming to be the United States of America and the people thereof. Further, the United States of America, Inc. ran the nation's service bill up in the name of the people of this nation, using them as collateral to cover the cost of that debt. So whenever you get your birth certificate and you have your all caps name and your social security card, you are therefore collateral, and they are over your trust, pretty much your estate. You are then an estate. So a lot of people, including myself, are trying to figure out how to be and run by being the donor of the estate, and operate that way. And I'm still really trying to learn how to operate. It's a new template. So okay. However, the truth is that the end of the third and final international bankruptcy on November 2nd, 1999, which, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that there was another bankruptcy in June of 2020. So the USA Inc. was legally under global international banking law, forced to close and vacate the U.S. Trust, Office of President, thereby vacating their corporate copyrighted U.S. Constitution and its International Postal Services authorization as the representative that opened up the 13 colonies and now 50 states of global commerce with the rest of the world, and surrendered their location and usury of the DC, therefore legally dissolving and ending all federal services contracts ever created between themselves and the 50 continental United States of the American Union of the Republic. I love that verbiage right here. This right here, love that. Okay. It is the ultimate object of this report to demonstrate that the International Postal and Private Federal Services Corporation of the United States of America, Inc. has had no legal federal services contracts and no authorization to represent this nation in any capacity since 1999, which they really should have had authorization to represent this nation in any capacity since 1871. Because that was the very beginning of the takeover. Okay. Well, I guess it was before then, because the Virginia Company is a British of Columbia territory that was around in supposedly the 1600s, and they're the ones that turned into the Rothschild Federal Reserve stuff. There's something there. They're the ones that got together with the Federal Reserve to make the USA Inc. Okay. And since that time, it has been illegally running federal, And since that time, it has been illegally running federal services, corporate presidential candidate elections, in a concerted effort to commit criminal fraud by tricking the American people to further continue their acts of bartery, international banking fraud, extortion, collusion, and conspiracy press ganging into thinking that they are all still employed by the people of the states of this nation. So it's up to us, the people of the Republic, the living souls, real people of the Republic, to say, you do not represent us, me, the person, the people in this state and in this nation. You do not represent me. So, to demonstrate further how the subversive acts of war against this great nation were brought against it directly through the 50 states and the offices of the governor in each state. It's a very well thought out plan. It is the ultimate object of this report to demonstrate how these illegal acts of incorporation by each governor of every state was enacted and allowed each state to become an incorporated extension of Washington, D.C., i.e., the state of Texas, the state of Michigan, the state of whatever. All of them are the incorporated version of Texas state, Michigan state. Okay, so that's the copyrighted version. So that incorporation then allowed the states to adopt and use the private corporate copyrighted copycat version of the codes and statutes of Admiralty and Maritime Law of the Sea, laws of Great Britain, privately created to be used by the federal corporation operating out of D.C. to govern and arraign, incriminate its own federal personnel. Last time I checked, I am not a federal employee. I didn't sign up willingly to be a government employee. So those laws of Admiralty and Maritime Law of the Sea do not affect to anybody that has not consented to be a government employee. Your true system of the American government is the common law of the land. Describe how the private system in codes and statutes was deceivingly incorporated through the state and then adopted by the counties and practiced and enforced in the American common law court houses. The court system hijacked, so now how did they do that? Well, they invented their own minions, i.e. bar members, to do the dirty work for them under the guise of protecting and doing the right thing. So you go in, the bar association lawyer is there to protect the court, and the judge, that is the black coat judge, is there to protect the estate. Well, guess what the estate is? It's you. It's your corporate, all caps name. So that's why. So describe how the International and American Bar Association conspired to create, incorporate, practice, and finally enforce these private corporate codes and statutes against the American people in direct violation of the Constitution for the United States of America in an act of war, as clearly defined in the Constitution, to desecrate its civil legal system of the people, by the people, and for the people, to kidnap and extort its people, and obliterate the American government system and the American government altogether. So bartery, the definition for bartery is fraud or gross negligence of a ship's master or crew at the expense of its owners or users. It is the object of this report to further explain how the United States of America, 50 territories of all of the nation's people were set up to be surrendered through the culmination of all of these acts by the Federal Services Corporation, the USA Inc. And that's how arrogant these people are. It's like cattle, how they view the American people as nothing more than cattle. So in 1999, and then again, once again captured by the Royal Crown as peasants and serfs to pay off the $17 trillion debt incurred by Great Britain's Federal Administrations Corporation, the United States Inc. So that's like, pretend that Great Britain is mom and dad and the USA Inc. is the son that's going off to college that needs a re-up on his black card credit card. This is how absurd and irresponsible and just over the top indulgence. It's just insane of the self-serving aspect of it, but self-service always self-destructs. I fully believe that. Okay, so however, the United States of America was actually never surrendered in 1999. In reality, the United States of America was indeed saved by federal postal judge Russell J. Gold and federal postal judge David Wynn Miller. Now, I've gone over here to look at their sites, and their quantum grammar is really hard to get used to and to figure it out. So I'm going to have to do a lot more information digging on that and let my brain process it. So here is a documentary that is by Russell J. Gold, and I shared that on my Telegram, Rebels Regenerate Telegram. And I think that's going to go more into explaining the common law for you. So apparently it was legally recaptured lawfully, which is very important. Legal is Marty time. Lawful is law of the land. Reconstituted free from bankruptcy and bartery. Once again, setting the whole nation free from the fiction international bankruptcy fraud that was being played out against it by the USA Inc. in their efforts to destroy the nation and recapture this nation. Okay. It is the object of this report to demonstrate and inform the American people that the international postal authorizations, once held by Great Britain, are now held by the United States of Our World Corporation. And all federal services that are being provided to the states and overseen by the British government are all null and void. Now, once the American people are aware of that, then they have zero power. All of these crazy statutes and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And see, that's why they have the whole fear and savior program, because they want the American people to not stand up and say, well, we don't need your governance. We don't want it. It's not welcome. They are not welcome here in America, especially if you're a pedophile. Yeah, you need to be killed with firing squad. Okay, So finally, this report will demonstrate that this vital information is being kept secret and is unknown to most American people and the U.S. military, and describe how it has been the endeavor of, and they use the word heroes. Federal Postal Judge Russell J. Gold and Federal Postal Judge David Wynn Miller, to inform the military of these facts so that they can be enacted or enact the military to clean this nation out and once again defend it in the name of God as sworn. Now, all of the people, all of the military, there's good and bad. So I'm hoping that, they uphold their oath to the true nation and her people. Okay. So that is the end of the prelude. And the opening information, so think of November 2nd, 1999 as the new, or as the, I guess, new July 4th, 1776. Okay. From what I'm getting under here. So the Federal Services Contract Corporation, the United States of America, Inc., USA, Inc., that was created by Great Britain, Federal Reserve, the Virginia Company, all of those knuckleheads, and based in the District of Columbia to assist in the management and international affairs of the 13 colonies and now 50 states of the nation, legally and lawfully ended its federal services contracts and vacated the trust with the 50 states of this nation, ending all contractual ties between themselves and the 50 states, with the closeout of their District of Columbia's third and final international bankruptcy. So, since the founding of the United States of America, the actual country founded by the 13 colonies, this day was November 2nd, 1999, was the most important day in the history of the world in relation to this country and its interaction with the other nations of around them, or the world around them. So this was the day that the international postal representation of all the federal services being provided and overseen by Great Britain for the 50 territories of the Union of the Republic, the United States of America, which operates under the Constitution for the United States of America. And the District of Columbia and its Federal Services Contract Corporation, the United States of America, Inc., which operates under the copyrighted corporate copycat Constitution of the United States of America, Inc. So legally and lawfully ended and were dissolved. This was presidential election year on the day, November 2nd, 1999, that the United States of America, Inc., from here on, the USA, Inc., due to the close of the third and final international bankruptcy. Again, I think we've had a fourth one. Definitely not the final one, because what happened in June? I'm still confused on the whole Treasury being converted over, so we'll have to, but this was before then. So, okay. So it had to legally vacate its copyrighted corporate constitution and its Federal Postal Services contract with the 50 territories, also vacating the trusteeship, the office of president, in the process, and therefore cease to exist as an international representative and guardian in the affairs concerning all commerce globally for this nation, the 50 states. So, like I said, all of this stuff is a movie, but why aren't we seeing more of this? Because the American people are still under the guise of false control. In light of this legal information, it is very clear that the USA Inc. is continuing to operate in fraud well beyond its voided service agreement, as it has no lawful legal federal contracts with the 50 territories since November 2nd, 1999, yet continues. And so this was in 17 So for 16 years plus 17, so for 20 years, 19, to pose and make believe, masquerade as if it is still employed and representing the 50 United States of America in an international federal capacity. So for 20 years has been or has continued void of contract to beguile the 50 states and present fraudulently contrived illegal legislation and belligerent executive orders to the people of this nation with no authorization, standing, or jurisdiction to do so, while in the criminal process of fraud, bartery, and breach of trust. So this is a list of illegal activity that could keep running, but we'll stop here to conserve time and space. This report will explain that the true government construct of the country itself was very closely duplicated in a mirror image to purposefully create confusion, whereby the Constitution of this nation was copycatted by the federal corporation, the USA Inc., to create a private copyrighted corporate version for themselves, to confuse the American people of the outcome of the Civil War, pretty much. They didn't want to be the employees of the Americans, right? So the USA Inc. to create a private copyrighted corporate version for themselves, and then it was used by the USA Inc. in a blatant act of fraud, subversively designed to undermine and destroy the actual nation's true American government in an act of war. This was obviously an extremely well-planned, long-range act of war against this nation. And with the amount of administrative work and support that was required to achieve this objective, it is obvious that there are a great deal of people working together at the top to pull an operation of this magnitude off. And who are those people? The people that are run by blackmail, the Black Saturn Sun. Some people say that it's a regressive reptilian race that, see the humans literally as nothing but cattle. Some people believe like the Luciferians and the people that sacrifice to Moloch. So those are all the people, the Epsteins, all of the blackmail that's been run by the world. It's finally coming out. I've known about the USA Inc. and the Act of 1871, and I've been preaching the Declaration of Independence. And then I find this, and even though it's older, I see a young man on my Telegram. I actually shared it earlier, and he's talking about like the Act of 1871 and the incorporated version of America. And I'm like, those are the kids, those are the people's backs that we've got to have right now, because the kids that are able to grasp this information, those are the kids that the deep state is most worried about and scared of. So we got to have their backs. Okay. This entire system was corruption against the United States of America and its people, as committed by USA Inc. and the World Bank, etc., has been very well tracked, recorded, and globally exposed, thanks to the tireless work of common law judge. So they call out Anna von Ritz. Still not 100% on board with Anna, even though I learned a lot of her information. And yes, she is very informative, but there's still some unverified ties and stuff. Like I was kind of on the fence about the American States Assembly.net. That's her thing. Because I don't know, I didn't like the idea of getting out of a system and then getting back in a system, and her information's great. Okay, so federal postal judge. Okay, so we got David Wynn Miller, and we got Russell J. Gold, Clandestine. So work of the military special operations community and the brilliant independent public investigative press work at this country. You're welcome. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop there just because now, well, hang on, let's see the private message. So for information and assistance on how to retrieve U.S. gold and return it with greatness to the people of the United States free. Okay, so 2016, foreign currencies. Passport. This is that quantum grammar stuff. Clearance code. Okay. So in 1775, when the 13 colonies won their freedom from Great Britain, they were not only penniless, but they were bankrupt, owing France the tune more. I'm getting a little drained when I read out loud or I talk a lot. It makes me drained. Okay. So the Bill of Rights was an extension of the Declaration of Independence, which was the only document that contained the immortal signatures of all of the original founding fathers. The King's U.S. Constitution was never signed by any of the representatives of the 13 colonies except for George Washington, nor was it recognized by the 13 colonies as their form of government. Only with the adoption and recognition of the Bill of Rights by the King's government did the 13 colonies quietly agree to ratify this U.S. Constitution, and in their quiet disapproval in the face of this document, refused to sign it. However, because the Declaration of Independence had been signed by all of the founders of the 13 colonies, it was attached to the Bill of Rights and then bonded to the U.S. Constitution during the Congressional Assembly, which begrudgingly authorized its indirect ratification. With the closing of that congressional hearing, the congregation of the General Assembly between these two governments, the Continental Congress of the United States of America, and the municipal corporation known as the District of Columbia. So see right here, that is happening again right now. Like this is where we are right now. We have the Continental Congress of the United States of America again for the first time in like 200 years. See, it's only been the municipal corporation, the District of Columbia, aka the United States Inc., been running, and we haven't had our original republic running. I think Lincoln was the last one. So later to become the USA Inc., were to never convene again in the history of this nation. So it was over. The Federal Government Service Corporation has never held any position of authority over the people of this nation, their rights, or their freedoms in any manner or capacity whatsoever, and never will. So the administrative history, the established effective June 1st, 1871, by the Act of February 21, 1871, abolishing the corporations of the city of Washington, D.C. and Georgetown, D.C., and the levy court of Washington County, D.C., and replacing them with a municipal corporation known as the District of Columbia. So this part right here, the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., is not a part of America. It's not. It's just like Sears, Target, that we're letting control and dictate our lives. It's pretty fucking stupid. All right. Um, I thought this was cool, like a caveat. So the Declaration of Independence, de is no, Claire, speak, at, location, Sean, or on, Sean, whatever, contract. Independence, in, no, d, no, pinned, right, ence, contract. So I thought that was interesting. No speak, location, contract. No right, no contract. Okay. So translation and correct grammatical construct, you shall not speak contract and you shall not write contract. So Ben Franklin. Okay, the adverb, declaration, verb of adverb, making independence a verb. All right. Fictional conveyance of grammar. So, and fiction is conveyance of grammar. Hence, it is rumored that the Declaration of Independence was auctioned off as a meaningless historical document written by a French attorney who was hired by the English crown to capture the United States of America, and who was also in his acting commissions founder of the Continental Congress. Welcome to treason. 8 books have been published on this fact. So continuing back in September 17th, 1789, now no law becomes legal for 90 days. From September 17th, plus a 45-day trust law, plus a 3-day rescission act, is the day of the bombing of Fort Sumner in 1860, and the Civil War starts. So add 70 years and see, after the Civil War is whenever a lot of that stuff started changing, and our employees pretended that they were our employers and have continued from there then on. So this November 2nd, 1929, presidential election day, the United States announces that it's coming out of its international bankruptcy. It's called the Year of Jubilee, the forgiving of all debts. However, a 5-day rule applies. England alerted the United States of the 5-day rule, stating that before they were able to close the banks and credit unions, all banks and credit unions must be given a 5-day notification of closure. So the notice of all banks and credit unions that they are going to close all the banks and credit unions on November 2nd, 1929, was posted on October 29th, 1929, the day the stock market crashed, initiating the Great Depression. The dollar was only worth 10 cents globally. And birth certificates came out around this time too. I'm not exactly sure, but like on the date exactly, but that's very, very close to around the same time. Okay. Caveat. So the stock market crash of 1929 was also an orchestrated indirect over commerce. Okay, so this is just like 9/11. They were supposed to do the Jubilee similar to this in like 1999. What, or 02. So this is where like Nessara and Jassara, like, think about that. So then they created a false flag. Of course, we can't let this happen, blah, blah, blah. Just like the war that they created with Iran and their fake planes to keep America hostage. Okay. So the bankruptcy was retroactively renewed to September 17th, 1929, add 45-day trust law, and you get November 2nd, 1929, add another 70 years, and we arrive at November 2nd, 1999. So remember the Florida Chads? The Florida ballots had to be hand counted, and it took exactly 90 days. Why? As no law becomes legal for 90 days, there are also no laws for 90 days. The IRS does not exist for 90 days. The federal government ceased to exist for 90 days. All contracts between the 50 states and the Federal Government Services Corporation, aka the USA Inc., operating out of the District of Columbia, had legally come to an end, were lawfully vacated and legally dissolved. With the closeout of the third and final international bankruptcy, the Federal Government Services Corporation, aka USA Inc., operating out of the District of Columbia, had to vacate its postal contracting ability as the post office for that corporation. It was for this reason that the U.S. military, under the Universal Postal Union, was ordered a DEFCON 2 as a precautionary tactic should the United States of America be invaded. And on February 2nd of 2000, Bush was appointed as the first CEO and president of private corporate America. And what came next? Oh my God. A big act of treason on the American people. Wow. Okay, continuing. The government is the post office, folks. The president of the United States, pre-simulation denture, appoints a postmaster general who controls all branches of government: CIA, FBI, police, and fire, every branch of the government, Homeland Security, Department of Interior, Department of Forestry, etc. Everything in the United States is controlled by the post office. The same holds true in other countries. The kings, queens, and the rulers and dictators of the world are no more than puppets working for the postmaster, because the postmaster controls the treasury that prints the money and controls the military that protects and defends the money, or whatever is backing the money. In our case, the land and our gold. That is how the world runs. So you have to follow the timelines if you want to know the truth. And these timelines have been running roughly for 6,700 years. Part 1. So I'm going to leave it at that because I am getting tired. Stop share. Still recording. Yes. I sometimes mess it up, and I'm sitting here talking and talking and talking, and I'm like, yay, feeling really good about it. And then I realized that I didn't press record or something silly like that. So I'm glad that that didn't happen tonight because we got through a lot in that, excuse me. Perfect timing. You guys have a great night.